We all know the rhyme. In 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. I would have made that rhyme up too, because a drunk Italian guy stumbling across a bunch of different islands and continents doesn't sound nearly as good. Growing up, we were taught in school that Columbus was a great explorer who discovered several countries. But the truth is different though. Here at Tales of Earth, we like to look at truth versus the myths about things around the world. So sit with us for a little while as we take a look at what really happened with Christopher Columbus's voyages. Brief history. Christopher Columbus was born in 1451 in Genoa. Eventually, he would settle down in Spain, where he lived most of his life. As a teenager, he worked on trading ships until his adult life, when he devised a route across the Atlantic to Asia. So let's look at a few myths. For instance, some people believe that part of the reason that Columbus undertook this voyage was to prove that the Earth was round. This is in fact false. Most educated people already knew that the Earth was round during this time period, including Columbus himself. So what really happened? The idea was simple. Christopher Columbus was hired by Spanish royalty to prove that you could sail west, cross the Atlantic Ocean, and land on Asia. The trip would be easier and faster than sailing around Africa, which was the current method, or going over land, which was almost impossible at this point. So that was the plan, but there was one little issue. Columbus was actually wrong. Honestly, it didn't matter that he was wrong, because Columbus also promised that he would receive 10% of any riches that he would find on his journeys, as well as governorship of the lands that he discovered. So even if his plan was wrong, he would still gain monetarily from his voyages. Another common misconception about Columbus is that he discovered America. Now, I'm not the first person to make the argument that you can't discover something that already has people living on it. If Columbus had happened upon North America, the Native American people had been living on this continent for thousands of years. So discovery is kind of a strong word. Also, the fact is that there is well-known evidence that Leif Erikson and the Norse raiders also arrived on the shores of Canada long before Columbus was even born. And there's also evidence that several other explorers from ancient societies may have visited as well. Okay, so did you notice earlier that I said if Columbus had happened upon North America? The reason for that is that he never actually set foot in North America. Now, he did explore the coasts of both South and Central America, but the day that we celebrate as Columbus Day actually marks the day that Columbus arrived in the Bahamas. Once again, you can't say he discovered the Bahamas because they already had people living there. So let's move on to that little piece of information. Once Columbus arrived in the Bahamas, he dubbed it the West Indies because he didn't want anyone to get it confused with the actual India that he was looking for. So whenever Columbus and his men met the indigenous people, they dubbed them Indians. Now, one of the things that we are not taught in school is that Columbus is also responsible for the decimation of the Taino people. They were the natives of the islands of the Caribbean. First arriving on the islands, Columbus began trading with the locals. However, kindness quickly turned to violence and slavery. People were put to work on the islands, mining for gold for their new governor. At the same time, hundreds of these people were also shipped back to Spain to be sold at auction. Combine that with the fact that Columbus also brought something that they kind of didn't intend for him to bring to the New World: disease. Sickness spread amongst the natives, further destroying their populations. Columbus treated the people so badly that at one point, he was stripped of his governorship and imprisoned in Spain. So the question then becomes, why do we celebrate Columbus Day? Several places today have renamed the holiday to celebrate the indigenous people and the native cultures of the places that Columbus visited. The argument is that while Columbus did some truly horrible things, if not for him, the age of exploration into the New World would not have begun, and the world as we know it today would not be what it is today. We here at Tales of Earth aren't telling you what to believe, we're just merely laying out the facts. It's up to you to decide what you should be celebrating.